scary things are. I'm your host, MonsterMash Ken. And unfortunately, Muse is not with us tonight. So normally I go right into that. But I do have my co-host, Chris the Creature Zisi. How you doing tonight, buddy?
It doesn't get any better than this. I could go on and on. You guys would think I'm lying. I mean, this is Nirvana and a half.
Right on. And we have HorrO from PromoteHorror.com with his sidekick, Dexter, the intern. How you doing, HorrO?
Oh, we're doing excellent tonight. Getting ready for a little trip, but before that, we're taking care of some business tonight, and I'm excited for this interview.
I am too. And I'll introduce our guest in one quick second here. Like I said, just give Muse her give her prayers. She just wasn't feeling good. She never misses a show, so she's sick. And she's my partner in crime here. But we're just going to do the interview tonight, so we're not going to do our normal get-ups. But I am really excited to have our guest on tonight. This is Brandon Christensen. He is the director, the writer of an awesome movie that we all got to watch recently, and I think it was just blowing up on Shudder. Super Host. Brandon, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, thank you. I can't praise the movie enough. I mean, first question I had to ask you is, how's it been, man? Like just riding this tidal wave of it's super host all over Twitter and everything. How's it been for you?
It's been pretty cool. I mean, we only got to do the one film festival screening that Omar was at, and it was it's kind of a weird thing because typically you do a film and you kind of go through that circuit of just going through the festival thing where you're able to actually interact with people immediately after, and you get that kind of personal experience of sharing your film with people. And I only got to do that once, so it was kind of a different experience from my last films where I was able to kind of go from place to place and show the film all around, and then it came out. But in this case, it just felt like we finished it and immediately came out, and it was just a different experience to get the feedback on a screen. So it was a lot more just like the tweeting and the stuff like that compared to that in-person feedback. So that was kind of the biggest thing for me, was just not being able to really have that shared experience like I normally do. But yeah, I mean, it's been, compared to my other two films, the the response on Twitter and everything has been pretty overwhelming, and it's been pretty rad just to see people connect with Rebecca like this.
Yeah, Rebecca's character, Gracie Gillum.
Gillum, yeah.
I mean, you meet her in this random way, and I don't know who stayed in Airbnbs or whatnot, but you always wonder what your host is like, right?
Right.
And this one is not shy, and but it's funny because there are some couple surprises of guests that come in. It's not a big cast here,
Right.
but I feel like in some horror movies you kind of connect with the antagonist here, and she was somebody that you started to like. Like I was like, this person's
Right.
really cool and interesting. So talk to me about that casting. You had Sarah Canning, who played Claire, and Orsic Chow, who was Teddy, who were the main protagonist there, and then Gracie comes in, and then you see randomly Barbara Crampton just pop in there out of nowhere, which is amazing because she's just coming off of a really big film herself. Anyway, so how did you go about the casting on this one?
Since it was such a small budget, kind of the way we had to do it was casting through friends or friends of friends. Sarah Canning I'd worked with on Z, and so I sort of actually had her in mind when I wrote this character. Osric Chow, he was anyways my friend's roommate, a friend of mine that I'd worked with a ton over the years, and she had shot with him on a feature film that she did, and she spoke very highly about him. So it just became just a matter of, oh wow, we can get this guy Osric, that'd be awesome. And so she kind of hooked us up with that. And then Barbara Crampton is someone I talked to over email over the last couple of years. She had some projects that she was reaching out about, and she's producing and stuff like that as well now. Nothing really ever worked out, but when I had this script, I just sent it along, and she fortunately dug it, and she was just like, yeah, let's do it. And we had her for a couple days. And then Gracie was the last person brought on. I was talking to a bunch of different actors about coming onto this role. everybody's, you know, they loved the part. They thought it was a lot of fun, but just schedules weren't working. And so there was one actor, Sierra McCormick, who was shooting another film in Michigan at the time. She just said, "Hey, sorry, I can't do it, but you should really reach out to my friend Gracie. She'd be great for this." So I did. I reached out to her agent and everything, and we got a call, and yeah, we just really connected on the material. And she had some great ideas, and I loved the fact that she had been in a bunch of Disney stuff. You know, she'd done this like teen beach party thing, so she was used to kind of putting on that face for an audience, and that was totally what I wanted from Rebecca, just to be presenting your best self, and then, you know, allowing the cracks to start showing, and then, you know, the sort of the mask slips off and she reveals her kind of true self for that final act. So yeah, I mean, it was just you know, a lot of good luck with casting, as you know, it always is. But yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was small crew, small cast, but I had a blast shooting it.
So, you know, we live in the age where, I mean, we're doing it ourselves. We're broadcasting live on YouTube right now, but a lot of people are trying to make it big on YouTube, you know, and the premise of the story is, you know, Claire and Teddy are losing viewers for this really cool idea that they do have. And, you know, they have to make that decision. Do we exploit some of these weird hosts and whatnot? And there's some back and forth there. Some of the camera angles that you did and some of the shots that you did, I felt like I was watching a YouTube channel. Were there any challenges in that? How did you make that happen?
No, I mean, it was sort of a creative decision going into the script, even like there, you know, it's got any scene that was shot narratively, like cinematic and, you know, like tripod, whatever. It would always have a slug that said narrative on it. And then any kind of something that was shown as their YouTube show or just the raw footage or whatever, it would say found footage on it. So yeah, it was just kind of an interesting experiment. I thought that might be kind of fun to play with, is since we have these characters that are creating something, to see what they're creating in a rough, you know, it's kind of in different stages. Like you see there's 2 polished edited segments in it, the opening and then the house tour that they do. And then the rest of the, you know, every time it shows them, it's like untreated, looks kind of crappy. And even the sound quality is kind of tinny. It's a lot, you know, the quality is down. And it's just sort of showing, you know, you kind of cut from that to the prettier footage that looks like a movie, and you just kind of constantly jumping back and forth. And I thought it was kind of fun to play with those 2 mediums, because I've never really seen that before, where you mix them up quite this much. And then of course you have the big climax at the end where it's really cutting back and forth, and that was a lot of fun to play with too. But yeah, it was just one of those things. We had 2 different cameras for it. We had the red camera that we shot all the cinematic stuff with, and then we had this Canon C300, I think, that served as like the vlogging camera. And so we were kind of juggling different shots, and you know, you see them using a Canon during the interview process, but that's not actually the camera that we used to acquire the footage that they were shooting. It was a little complicated, but yeah, it was kind of cool to play around with the different formats.
No, I liked it. I thought, like I said, I felt like when the movie starts, I'm watching a YouTube channel, and I'm like, did I put the right thing on here?
Right, totally.
So that was awesome. And then something else I wanted to ask about. I'm really big on practical effects, you know, and not using a lot of CGI or anything like that. And I thought that you nailed it on some of the more violent parts,
right?
is what I should say. Do you have a background in that? Like, I thought you nailed it. I thought some of like surprise parts, especially with Barbara Crampton's character,
right,
just killed it. No pun intended. But how do you have a background in makeup or anything, or?
No, it was just so that is a digital effect, but because we just didn't have the time to do it the way that we wanted to. Like we had the knife pieces that we were going to put on her face, but you know, that day was such a huge undertaking. It was like 7 or 8 pages of just dialogue, so we had so much to shoot. And then by the end, when you get to the bloody stuff, because you have to do that at the end, we had just completely run out of daylight. So we had like 15-20 minutes, and it was just one of those things like, we don't have time to do this properly. You'd need like an hour to apply this stuff, do all those and stuff like that. So I've done a ton of VFX in my career for my own films and for other people's. And so I knew that I could take the assets and kind of like, you know, I hold it up to her face and I get her hand there and I do all these things, and I'm just shooting kind of pieces that I can use to put it all together at the end. So the assets used are real, but I had to kind of cobble them together with VFX, and so it is kind of like a mix. And yeah, it was when you're frantically just you've got Barb and everyone's like, what the hell is this guy doing? I'm like holding a blade on Barb's face. I'm holding Rebecca's hand against her chin. And I'm like, okay, we're going to separate at the same time. And then we're going to shoot different plates of your eyes moving so I can make them look kind of wonky and all that stuff. It was, it was just one of those things that, I mean, my other films, I never really had a lot of blood in them, like Stillborn has like no human blood on him. And then Z had the father character who died. But other than that, I've never really done this kind of effects. Like with Claire's character at the end, we had a whole rig that our makeup artist built, and so that was practical, which was fun. It was just like cleaning up the neck area so you couldn't see it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that slows everything down. When you're on set, like it's such like a quick moment. I mean, it's like 15 frames when Barbara gets it, and ideally you'd have several hours for it, but since we only had like 15 for the whole thing and the stomach stuff, we just had to be really creative in how we kind of blended the two, practical and digital.
Well, I thought you did a really great job with it. And one more
Thanks.
question: where did you shoot this? Was this in like California?
It was a place just outside of Las Vegas. It's called Mount Charleston. It's like 30 minutes from the Strip. It's really close. It's pretty wild. You're just kind of in the desert. You're on this little windy road, and then all of a sudden you like pop out of this kind of mountain pass, and you're just like in these tall these tall evergreen trees, and it looks like you're in somewhere in like Colorado or something like that. So yeah, it was a place that I've wanted to shoot in for a long time, just because it's so pretty and close. So it was a nice opportunity to not have to go up to Canada to shoot a film for the first time.
Yeah, we're right on. Actually, it's funny. I'm on my way out to Vegas this weekend. But
Really?
I'm gonna go ahead and pass you on over to HorrO. Actually, Chris, we'll let you go next, and then HorrO we'll put back cleanup. Go ahead, Chris. Go for it.
Brendan, thank you so much. It's wonderful talking to you. I love the movie.
Cool.
And one of the reasons I loved it, and I think HorrO will affirm this, is we love a horror brutal, and this turns into a brutal movie. And whatever you see in the first 10 minutes, don't worry, it's going to get brutal.
Right.
And I won't give too many spoilers away. You also wrote it. And you wrote these characters, you invented these characters. And, Rebecca's a psycho, and I try not to be judgmental. Ken alluded to it. We kind of like her. She's kind of neat to see.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't a problem with violence and carnage, she'd probably be a really nice lady to hang around. But when you were creating these characters and throwing them together, was there some part of you that saw Claire as the villain in this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of the boy who cried wolf situation for it. At the ending with what happens, it's, I think her audience, these people that she leans on and she's, curated and kind of created this fan base, they aren't there for them when she really needs them. And so it's kind of like she has everything she needs right in front of her. Like Teddy's a good guy. He's there for her. He'll do whatever he wants. And yet still she has to go to these faceless people that she's sort of spent her, who knows how long, 5-6 years trying to kind of build. And so, I mean, if you were to look at this film in a different lens and it was just two people going to have a nice kind of anniversary or whatever, just a retreat, they would have shown up, had maybe a couple awkward interactions with the host because they couldn't get in, whatever, but then they would have left and it would have been fine. It's only because of the fact that she decided to exploit this girl that anything bad happens whatsoever. So, I mean, yeah, for 100%, like it is kind of that balance that it's playing the whole time, is how do you make someone that is trying, you've got it's not like she's the protagonist of the film. She's just the main character. So it's kind of an interesting kind of balance that we were playing, but it was definitely intentional that by the end of the film, you'd be rooting for Rebecca.
Yeah. Rebecca's kind of neat. You mentioned Disney earlier. You can see that character. She's the type of thing your kids would watch over and over again, and you'd want to kill her because it's that sickeningly sweet smile.
Totally.
But she, as far as inspiration and how you might have gone into creating Rebecca, sort of that, and I don't know if likable is the word, likable psycho.
Right.
That's not first time. I remember Norman Bates. We kind of liked him. I never had the thing going, but
Right.
he's good to his mom, and
He's charming.
Yeah. Were there any inspirations that helped you create Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the big one was Joseph from Creep. You know, that was I had an Airbnb experience where I had to deal with the host, and I had this super awkward interaction with him, and it just kind of stuck with me as like, man, it's a weird situation we put ourselves in. You know, to be staying in some stranger's space. You know, that person could be anybody, and so. That was definitely kind of the germ of the idea. And then when I did finally see Creep and I saw Joseph's character just sort of maniacally make you love him, it was just kind of that like a light bulb moment that I could, you know, take this this type of character who does horrible things, but because they do it with so much gusto, it makes you, you know, actually really like them. And so I wanted to kind of transplant that onto this Airbnb setup. And you know, Rebecca was slowly created, but you know, I think if I hadn't seen Creep, I don't think that would have, you know, nothing would have kind of come out of the idea. I don't think, anyways, because it was just I wanted to kind of create my own level, you know, like you said, the likable psychopath.
Yeah, and you know, who isn't just a little bit psychopath anyway?
Right.
I've noticed, and maybe I just haven't seen enough of it. My relationship with Shudder is a fairly new one, but I've noticed the Shudder original movies. And believe me, nobody likes imperfection as much as me. That's why I'm a big fan of sci-fi and the Asylum. But the Shudder movies, I don't know, maybe I just haven't seen enough. They seem terrifically acted, terrifically made, and great writing. They seem a step above any of the other streaming services. So you can see a made for Netflix thing, a made for Tubi thing, made for whatever thing. Shudder seems to be up here. How's your relationship with them? Have they said we love it, and Brandon, we want you to do another one for us to be out, you know, early next year?
Yeah, it's definitely a relationship that's still kind of growing. They didn't acquire my first film, Stillborn, but they acquired the streaming rights from the people of Vertical Entertainment that bought the film for distribution. So that was kind of my first kind of foray into Shudder. And then when we made Z, we did it independently of them. Like, these are all independent films that they're acquiring. So we did Z, and while we were in post productions, they made an offer, and then, you know, we took the offer, so they got the exclusive there. And then kind of the same thing with Superhost. Shortly after we shot it, I started the talks, and you know, it all worked out. So yeah, it's definitely, you know, I feel like my career has kind of gone up with Shudder being very closely attached to it. Like, I feel like even though you can go elsewhere in the world and see the film and it doesn't have that branding on it, I still kind of feel like it's a Shudder film. And I can't really speak to the quality or anything like that, because each filmmaker is going to be different and doing their own deals separately and stuff like that. They do finance films and develop films and stuff like that. So I'm sure that a lot more of those will be coming out soon. But yeah, I mean, Shudder's been awesome. It's fun. It's just cool that this kind of service exists, you know, like there isn't a Chuckles or something like that, like a comedy first streaming platform or anything like that. Like, you know, Tubi has a ton of different things, but it's a different platform still. It's got, you know, it's ad supported. Whereas, you know, Netflix and Shudder, they are kind of just the streaming. It's just, you know, no ads, nothing like that. But since Shudder just curates directly for a specific audience, it's kind of cool to have that relationship, because you're not, you know, you are the Shudder movie of the week kind of thing, and it's not, you know, split with a million different other things, because, you know, Netflix is just so much content on there because they have to service so many different people. So yeah, I mean, Shudder, you know, I've been really fortunate to be working this closely with them.
Well, keep up the great work. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm eager to see your next production. And for all Barbara Crampton questions, I'm going to over to HorrO.
Cool.
I would have thought you had more Barbara Crampton questions, but that's okay. What's going on, Brandon? It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too, man.
So at the top, you mentioned showing your film at Popcorn Frights, and I just want to make it known for the audience out there, you won the jury award for best movie there as well. How is that on top of that experience, winning an award? And it's your third film that you showed there, so you finally got one in the bank there.
Yeah. Well, when I did Z, I won scariest film, so I'd sort of been inching my way up to the top prize, and yeah, I mean that was awesome. It was definitely unexpected. I mean, when you make a film and you have that one opportunity, you don't really have any expectations for anything like that. You just want to get the experience and show the fans that come out to a place like that, because those are the people that you really want to show these things to, people that are passionate enough to go out to a screening and enjoy it. Because I mean, horror fans, I feel like, are the most generous with their time and their money and all of those things. They're just so passionate about this one genre, and it's such a wide open genre. There's so many different subgenres in it, but I just think it's funny just how diverse the group of fans are. I mean, you go to Popcorn, you just see the different fans, and none of them look like they would be hanging out for any reason other than this festival and this genre that brings them all together. So yeah, I mean, that was one of the things, like I was saying earlier, I missed, is not being able to go to those different festivals and have those experiences with people. So I mean, it was great that I was able to make it work with Popcorn. And then you put an award on top, and it's just kind of icing on the cake. But I don't really do it for that. I just want to be able to show it in front of an audience and get that kind of immediate response that you get, that you can only get because these films don't come out in theaters really otherwise.
No, they completely misses the theater experience, and I'm very grateful that I got to see it on the big screen and on the small screen. I got to see it both ways, so nice. I got to enjoy it. I'm going to ask the question in honor of Muse, one of our co-hosts who's not here. She usually asks about challenges in the film. So what were some of the biggest challenges you had while filming this movie?
I mean, the film was pretty remarkably smooth. It was kind of weird. It was my shortest shoot that I've ever done. We did 3 weeks of 6 days each. And because I'm pretty familiar with the whole house horror thing now, staying in one location and trying to make it kind of interesting. I mean, you look on the call sheet and it's just like living room, and every scene is in the living room, and you're just like, oh, it kind of it sucks because you're facing one direction. You want to shoot a bunch of different scenes in a row in that direction, and then you want to turn around the lighting, and then you're going to shoot all these other directions, like that. And typically when I do my films too, there's a lot more night stuff. And in this film, there was no overnights, which was an awesome thing to experience, because overnights are terrible. Like your whole, just the way your brain works when it's 4 a.m. is just completely different than it does at 4 p.m. So, yeah, I mean, the movie was built to be very achievable with a low budget, small cast, small crew. And so there wasn't really a lot of, giant challenges, I don't think. Actually, no, you know what? There was one stupid thing that was kind of like from day one till the end that we had to deal with. Apparently, in this one time of the year, these tiny blue beetles swarm sunlight. And so anytime we'd be in front of the house and shooting, and that happens a fair bit, we would just find ourselves, just like the actors, anytime there was sunlight hitting them, they would just have beetles all over them. And so we would have to kind of schedule our days for when the sun was hidden behind the trees, so there was no direct sunlight. And it was just one of those things that you can't account for. Like we had no idea. I scouted it for months. I went up there and I'd never had any problems. But the day before we started shooting, when we brought the truck out and we, brought all the cameras and stuff like that, we noticed them just kind of like everywhere. And there's birds on the ground just sort of attacking them in the grass, and our cars are just covered in beetles, and we're like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is a weird one day thing. But then day one starts, and most of that day was out front. It's like the beginning of the film when they're all kind of in the front there, and we're like, we legit can't shoot right now because there's beetles in their hair and just all over them. And so it was just this really weird thing that we had to deal with. When Barb came for her 2 days, the first day was the big argument out in front of the house, and we had to shut down for like 3 hours and just wait for the sun to go far enough away that we were in the shade. So it was just like, the film was built to be very achievable, but we had this one random curveball that we had to deal with. So that was probably the biggest challenge as far as, just from the production standpoint.
That's crazy stuff there. That's very horror-like too, but that's good.
Yeah, it was like, how do we implement this into the script? But it's just like, no, we can't. We can't start throwing curveballs at the script now. It's kind of
now it's a beetle attack movie. Yeah.
yeah.
So you mentioned having a small crew. I think when we saw it, I don't remember if they showed it on Shutter, but I remember in the theater you had that one shot there of the small crew there. Talk a little bit about exactly how small of a crew that you really had.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't worked with a crew this small in anything like short films, commercials, anything for like 10 years. If you look at the crew lists on like Z and Stillborn, there's probably every day there was, ignoring cast, there was probably 20 to 25 people. And on this, there was me and then the producer, Curtis Harder, and then there was 6 others plus our COVID safety officer. So we had a cinematographer, we had an assistant camera, we had a sound, makeup, a gaffer, and a grip, and that was it. Like no PAs, nothing like that. The producer, Curtis, he had to kind of handle a lot of different of those duties. So I mean, it was really bizarre. I mean, there's just, we're always, like when you're on a bigger set, you can have people kind of working on the next scene, like the crew can be lighting the next scene if it's in a different location of the house or whatever. But on this, it's just like everybody was like all hands on board, shoot the scene, all hands on board, shoot the scene. And it was weird. I mean, it was just like going out with friends, because I'd worked with all of them before, which was really nice. Because we shot just outside of Vegas, so they're all people that I'd worked with, and I knew, I was confident in their abilities to be able to do it. But at the same time, like, you're still making a feature film, like there is so much work that goes into it. So we just had people kind of wearing multiple hats and doing all that. But I mean, it was inspiring to be able to do that and see that it is possible, because once all the COVID stuff happened and we kind of got a little bit more clarity, we had to start cutting positions like assistant director, PAs, stuff like that, because we just didn't have the money. Like there was so much testing and everything was still kind of new. Like this was, October 2020. It was just a ton of unknowns. So we had to spend, money on air filters and all the like HEPA filter things and fans and stuff like that. All these things that we had to do to get, SAG signatory for us and to make the shoot even work. So yeah, it was weird. It was just one of those things that you don't expect to deal with. But I was blown away with the fact that we could pull it off at all, because we just had really great people.
Awesome, and what a great job it all ended up being. Another kind of question here. Your first 2 films were dark and more jump scare oriented, and obviously with kids. But this is a little bit different direction. From either a writer, director, or both standpoint, how did it feel for you to kind of break that comfort zone a little bit and go in a new direction?
I mean, that was a big part of why I wanted to do this. The other 2 films were very dark and very kind of, it's nighttime scares, bumps in the night, stuff like that. I wanted to, going into it, I wanted to have something that was a little lighter, like having a character like the Joseph from Creep that kind of, embeds humor into the film, and you can kind of play with a lot lighter tones. And it's not to say that Superhost doesn't go very dark, because it has a lot of really dark stuff, but it just happens to take place like 95% of the time in daylight. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't really like a conscious effort to be like, I need to not do a dark film, but it was kind of a nice added benefit to being able to try something new, because I don't want to be typecast as like the creepy mom, creepy kid movie director guy. I still love those films and I would love to go back to it, but it's kind of fun to just paint with like a new palette, and you're just, lighter tones and more humor and a little bit more modern with like the YouTube stuff. And just sort of playing in that space. I don't know. It's just like I was saying earlier, like horror is such a broad genre that there are all these pockets of different things that you can play with. And so it was definitely fun to kind of tackle a different part of that space.
Awesome. I'll kind of wrap it up and throw it back to Ken, but my final question is, Gracie was so good. Did you really have to edit a lot of her stuff out, or is it just that she's so good and you're just like, oh, I got to keep that, or is it really hard to pick what you wanted to keep towards the end of the movie?
Yeah, that was definitely the hardest part, and I could tell when we were shooting, like, every take I would be laughing because it was just so absurd, like she was doing so many different things in every shot that it was like, okay, let's do it again. And I would feed her a small note to try and take it in a slightly different direction. And she would do it and it would be so funny and she would crush it. And it was just like, taking it into post-production, there was so many good options that it was hard to really know which would be the best. And so that was definitely the hardest part. Like I would be cutting scenes with Teddy and Claire and super easy because it's just like there's not a ton there. They're just, they're editing a thing, whatever. It doesn't matter. But then when you actually have these huge peaks and valleys in her performance, it was a huge challenge to try and figure out which take was right. And you kind of always had to sort of take a step back and just sort of look at it as an overall thing, because since she's kind of just in the movie in different parts, she had to kind of develop a little bit more every time. So we couldn't go too crazy in any directions until things go really crazy, in which case all the rules go out the window. But yeah, that was definitely the thing where it was just like, when we did the first week without Gracie, and so we kind of established a look and a tone and all these things. And then she shows up in week 2 and we do that opening scene where they meet. And it was just like, oh, wow, like this movie is completely different from that first week. Like we didn't realize just how much of a change she would make on the shooting itself. Because I mean, she wasn't, she'd only do like 2 scenes a day, but it's still, it still turns out to be her movie. And so we had to pretty much just like, just allow her to be this character and do this crazy shit. And it was hilarious to watch. But I mean, just it was agonizing to so many good takes were on the cutting room floor because you just couldn't, you can only use one. And that was the hardest part for sure. Just like figuring out this take is the best one for this reason. And I can't, and I'm sure there's a different version of this film where we were able to use different stuff, but I feel like we struck a good balance in the slow evolution of Rebecca.
Well, we definitely need a Rebecca outtake for the special DVD. We need that.
I know, for sure.
On behalf of horror fans out there, I'll just throw it out there. We'd love to see Rebecca come back for a sequel or in some role.
Prequel, man. We got to see a prequel.
Prequel, sequel, whatever.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely, it's funny because that ring thing was just kind of thrown in. Like when we were doing the makeup tests and stuff like that and doing like wardrobe fittings with Gracie, my wife did the wardrobe on it and she couldn't be on set or anything. So she just sort of prepped, each show day in the film, but she bought all these different rings. And so she put a bunch on her hands and we had like 10 left over. And it's never in the script or anything. It was just one of those things that like a conversation was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool if she just had a necklace with all these extra rings on it, and at the end of the film she can put Teddy's on there. And it was just like, oh, that's a cool idea. So the very last day of the shoot, we were shooting, everything was kind of in the basement, so we were kind of in that space. And while they were moving around some lights or whatever, I was just like, let's just run upstairs and shoot that scene. It's just 2 shots, let's just get it and then we'll have it. And it becomes such like an oh shit kind of moment, because you're like, how many rings are on that necklace. But it's funny because it was just like a total fluke of just when we had all these rings. If we never had those rings, that would never have happened. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a ton of stuff. Like I'd love to, I always, when I was talking to Gracie about the film, just sort of discussing what Rebecca was doing every day of of when these things are happening, and just trying to chart her course. Cause I feel like she's got this like, holy shit, I got to clean up. Holy shit, I got to do all this stuff. And she's got her own little story going at the same time. It would be fun to kind of go beyond that to whatever happened in South Carolina to get her to Colorado. And, who did she kill on the way? I think for sure that'd be fun to explore.
Like I said, on behalf of horror fans, we would love to see that.
Sure.
Thanks for answering my questions, Brandon. I'm gonna throw it back to Ken.
Cool, man.
Well, Brandon, like HorrO said, man, we'd love to see just where did Rebecca come from, or what's next after
Mhm.
Claire and Teddy, and just an awesome character. And it's funny, when I was watching the movie, I thought a lot about Creep, and we actually were able to talk to Patrick Bryce,
Oh, awesome.
and we loved that film. Like
Yeah,
both of them. I didn't know which one I
totally.
liked more. And
For sure.
anytime you got a character named Fuzzy Balls or Peach Fuzz,
Peach Fuzz.
and it was just a great film. And I thought about that. I was like, this is kind of like a different take on that whole
Mhm.
scenario, which was great, by the way. Anyway, thanks again for hanging out with us. We like to give you the opportunity to talk about what's in the pipeline for you, what's next, and where we can find you on social media.
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Instagram at the Brandon Christensen, all one word. Twitter is, I think it's the Brandon C85. You couldn't fit my whole name, but yeah, I've been writing some stuff with my brother now. We've got a script that we are currently in talks to get financing for, and I was hoping to shoot it this fall, but it looks like it's slipping into January, February. So it's definitely, it's another kind of a new palette to play with. It's more of like a college campus slashery supernatural mix thing, and so that's likely to be the next one. There's some bigger things that are kind of percolating in the behind the scenes that I can't unfortunately talk about publicly, but you will see. I mean, it's one of those things that is like pipe dream type of thing, like but it's out of my hands, so it either you'll hear about it or you won't. And yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm just trying to develop as many projects as I can, and just sort of have as many rounds in the chamber that I can. So when I get the opportunity again, I can hopefully shoot it and kill myself again.
Well,
I don't know if that's a great analogy, but yeah,
well,
we'll see.
listen, on behalf of Where the Scary Things Are and everybody in the chat room, thanks for hanging out with us tonight in the chat room there and on YouTube. You can catch Superhost on Shudder. Highly recommend this film. It's a lot of fun. You'll fall in love with Rebecca's character, Gracie Gilliam's character, Rebecca. And yeah, Brandon, thank you so much. Until next time, my friend, keep it scary.
Thanks, guys.